Hey guys, Stealth here. Long time no see, I know. I've been away, mostly working on my offline business, and that gave me not so much time to do wargame videos or other videos. But I felt like doing a couple of wargame videos, so expect some more uploads for the coming few days. Not saying that wargame is back, just doing these things occasionally though. Anyway, time for a deck review. This deck was sent in by Democritus, and it's a North Korean deck. Now, I'm not that experienced in North Korean decks. I try to steer clear from them. When I'm playing Red 4, I usually play USSR or East 4. So it's going to be interesting to look at this North Korea deck, which was designed for a 4v4 and 3v3. He wants the deck to be used in any situation: infantry combat, anti-tank, anti-helicopter, airplane, etc. So let's see what he has in here. Command-wise, one command vehicle or one card of command vehicles, which gives him 8 of these jeeps. Pretty high number. Might be too much. I think that the upgrade, which is the YW701, it's an armored vehicle, not armed. It's an armored vehicle, a bit of armor, 2 on the front and the side, 1 on the back and 1 on the top, and this still gives you 6 vehicles for only 20 points more, so let's change that. Then he has a fob, of course. You get pretty terrible choppers as far as I'm concerned. These things are dead slow, only 180 kph. They only carry 1,000 liters of supplies. And this means that they're going to be flying back and forth to your fob the entire time. Now, that's not really the problem, but they're dead slow. They're only traveling at 180. Multiple helicopters are going to be needed to resupply a battle group. But it's going to take time to get there. And normally what I would play is have a helicopter resupply a couple of supply trucks and then have the helicopter fly back to the fob. But keep in mind that with this helicopter it's going to take longer. Unfortunately, it's the only one we have. Alternative would be ZIL 130 cargos. They're not bad. They don't carry a lot of supplies and they are pretty cheap for 15 points. But it's going to take them even longer to get back to the fob. So I think that this, for North Korea, is the best possible setup. Now let's have a look at infantry. We got Yukyonde's 90. These are pretty capable forces. They got a nice mix of weaponry. They got the base assault rifle, a pretty good squad automatic weapon or a light machine gun. Good amount of suppression, and this makes them, especially since they have a 15-man strength, very capable of fighting other infantry, as well as taking out vehicles with their armor penetration value of 23. Now he's transporting them in a Korshun. Not the best vehicle, not the best transport, but they are pretty cheap. It really depends on how you want to use these guys. Personally, I would have at least one squad in a helicopter, and he has that. The Mi-8, of course, is not terribly fast. It has 250 kph, but it does come with a couple of rocket pod launchers. So with these we can do a quick land grab, and then with these we can do a follow-up. Now the problem that I have with the Korshun is that it has very, very bad accuracy on the main gun. That T-828 has only an accuracy of 20%. And while the Suzong Po isn't a bad weapon, you only get 3 missiles with a 45% chance to hit. And I believe that the missile isn't that fast. So what I would do here is pick a vehicle that's a bit faster and possibly cheaper. So I'm looking at either the BTR-60P, which has more off-road speed. Of course, it has less weaponry on it. Or we can go for the 60PB. Let's see, this one has a bit more top armor and a different machine gun. We're looking at 40.5 versus a 12.7. This means that this one has 1 point of armor penetration, and that is valuable. If you're doing up-close runs against other vehicles, and I'm talking lightly armored transports, I'm not talking tanks, you're never going to penetrate a tank with this machine gun. Although the cheap 15 to 20 point tanks, if you can get close enough, you might actually be able to make a dent in those things with this machine gun. Personally, I'm gonna go with the BTR-80A. And the reason for that is that this is a nice and very, very mobile transport. 80 kph off-road, 600 kilometers autonomy, bit of armor on the front and the side, and they come with a good autocannon. This thing fires at a very high rate of fire. Does 3 armor penetration, which is more than enough to penetrate vehicles quickly. So you can quickly take out the vehicle and do some damage to the infantry, hopefully before they get offloaded. So I will definitely be using this one instead of the Korshun. They will make my groups a little bit more expensive though. I'm going to be paying 50 instead of 45, and you lose a bit of availability. Let's see, the Caution. Actually, no, you don't lose availability. It's this. No, sorry, you do lose availability. I was looking at the BTR 60 earlier. You get 17 or 11 versus 11 or 8. Now, since these guys are already pretty good, I'm going to use 11 at hardened there. Then he has a couple of Iglas. These guys are, of course, the anti-air infantry. They're not great, but they get the job done. I personally prefer a range of 2600 for my AA infantry, but this is the only thing that Korea gets. So we're just going to have to make the best of it. He has these at hardened variety or hardened veterancy, making them a little more accurate than normal. I'm guessing this is going to be an accuracy of about 62 to 65%. And of course more as they get upgraded because they hit stuff. Transport for this one is the VTT 323. This is a special transport because it's one of the few, if not only, transports in the game that carries an AA missile, or a surface-to-air missile I should say. They're pretty terrible, low accuracy, low range. They do have a stabilizer though. You can fire these as fast or as accurate when you're on the move as well as when you're standing still with this vehicle. HE power is not stellar, just 4. It means that you're going to have to hit a helicopter at least once. If it's a lightly, say a light recon helicopter, you will have to hit it 2 to 3 times if you're looking at a heavier helicopter. But if you keep these guys in groups, say in a group of 2, I suppose that will make them pretty lethal. I've at least seen my helicopters get taken down by these things because I was not aware of the fact that these were the 323 Hwasung Chong version instead of the Suzong Po, which is the one that they usually use. Anyway, this is what we transport the Bongongzu in. Decent line infantry. They're a good backup for the Yukyok days. The Iglas, as mentioned, they're transported in the BTR 60 PB. I think it's a good transport. They get a bit of armor on every side. You could go for a 5-point cheaper transport if you want to. In this case, I'm going to do just that to make them even more cheap. 25 points for an AA infantry is not bad. And finally we got the Bibong Chun Pos. These are recoilless rifle infantry, bit of armor penetration, accuracy is okay-ish. They can engage infantry with their 2 HE. So if you have these as a sort of secondary line behind your Yukyok days or your Bongongzus, you have a bit of fire support. Keep in mind, these things are not very high in armor penetration, they only have 12. That means you will usually not be going through the front side of a tank, but since they fire heat rounds, you will always be doing some damage. If you really want to kill a tank, you're going to have to use the Type 69-3 RPG that the Yukyok Day carry, but that's a lower range weapon. Now let's see, support-wise, 6 Pongays, which is the highest veterancy, which gives them an accuracy boost of a couple percent, so you're going to be looking at 55-ish. Keep these guys in groups of 2 or possibly even 3. And the reason I'm saying that is because, as you can see, they only carry 2 missiles, they have no reloads. So if you have them in groups of 2 or 3, that makes them much easier for you to reload and rearm. It's going to save you quite a bit of valuable micromanagement time. It means that you don't have to babysit them as much with resupplying them. And I think that this is a very good thing, because the more you need to be micromanaging your AA, the less time you have, you actually have to do frontline operations, which is where I feel most of your attention should be. Let's see, 12 Pongays, that's a bit of a high number, especially considering we already got 8 of these SAM infantry here. Considering that he also has the 1992 Spag, I'm going to delete 1 Pongay, because I would like to get some mortars in here. They're always a nice asset to have in any kind of army, because they can put up smoke quickly, they can pound positions very, very quickly with their high rate of fire. Now you get the chance between the 323 82mm and the 120. 120 has more range, more dispersion, so they're less accurate, but they do more damage, they have a higher HE value. They also carry half the amount of rounds compared to the 82mm, and transport-wise they're exactly the same. So really the only choice that you have to make here is what kind of caliber rounds would you like to fire. where the 120 has more suppression value of 276, so it means it's going to stun and panic enemy infantry faster, or enemy targets, whatever you're firing at, versus the 189, but your rate of fire is cut in half. Personally, I like the 120 more because they can do more damage. I don't need an accuracy upgrade, so I'm just going to go with 8 trained. Tank-wise, he has 3 T90s. Of course, this is what you have to get if you're using this army. These are the superior tanks that they get. Keep in mind though, they are good tanks, but they are lacking in some areas. Their stabilizer isn't as good as you might expect from some of these super heavies. Their frontal armor at 22 is very, very good. But a frontal armor penetration of 23 is going to get you through the front of a Challenger, but only just. This T90 does not have an ATGM that it can fall back on if you want to engage super heavy at longer range. So keep in mind that this thing will have to get right up to 2275 meter range if you're fighting another super heavy. Now as backup, he has a couple of T72Ms and some Chonmaho 4s. Let me quickly compare these. You can see the T72M has a bit more frontal, actually no, it's the same frontal armor. They have a bit more speed, the optics are better on the T72, rate of fire is better. Yeah, this is what I was looking for, the range. They got 2100 meter range versus 2275, and that means that T72 will have to close in. Especially if you're fighting stuff which does have 18 frontal armor or more. This is going to get significant because the Chonmaho 4 can stay at greater range. So it's really up to you which kind of tank you prefer. I would go with 2 types of, or 2 cards of the same tank, or diversify a little bit more. In this case I'm going to stick with the T72M because I feel that this tank will serve me a little bit better than the Chonmaho 4. It's going to fit my playstyle a bit better. So I'm going to delete those and I'm going to put in some cheaper tanks, such as the Sinhum. They don't really look like a tank. I think they look more like an upgraded infantry fighting vehicle. But with their main gun, they have a decent rate of fire, they have a decent accuracy, armor penetration is enough to get some medium tanks worried, and these guys are very useful if you're making an initial push into a town. Because with these you can draw fire, they have some armor, although not that much. And with it you can just take some fire, dish out some shells early on, or use the long range Susang Po ATGM. Keep in mind it's not that accurate, you don't get that many missiles of it, and the armor penetration is a bit lacking. But they will always do some damage. So let's take 22 of those. Reconnaissance wise, 1 card of Reconnaissance Infantry, in this case the Sniper Team, because for North Korea we don't get anything else. Transported in one of those terrible Mi-4s. It is the only helicopter that we're getting to transport this infantry, so it's just going to have to make do. M1992 is, I always call it the battle bus because it's just what it looks like. This thing is a very good transport or a very good reconnaissance vehicle, but they're pretty pricey at 45 points. Very good optics, medium stealth, good autonomy of 500, although I have seen vehicles which are in the recon section which have pretty much the same specs but a much higher autonomy. A bit of armor on every side, including the top. Concours missile, which is better than the ATGMs that we've seen so far. Accuracy is okay, armor penetration, 20 armor penetration is not great, but it's enough. But this is the real interesting weapon on it. It's a grenade launcher. And with it you can suppress enemy infantry if you see it out in the open. And it makes this vehicle especially valuable in situations where you're going into a town, or where you are pushing up into a town initially. Because let's say that I would make a group that would do that. I would create a group of a couple of BDR-80As with their suppression guns, those other cannons. I would bring 1 or 2 Sinhungs, and probably 1 M1992 with their grenade launcher. Because with this firepower combined, you have a lot of anti-infantry and anti-vehicle firepower. Next up, vehicle-wise, TO-55 napalm tank. I've gone over this thing hundreds of times already. It's a nice to have vehicle in your deck, because they can do things that normal tanks just can't do. They're going to be really, really effective when you come up against other infantry that's entrenched in a town or a forest. Suzang Po Type 85. Personally, I'm not going to use these because I feel that their points, their activation points, could be spent elsewhere where they will better serve me. The Suzang Po missile, or this transport really, because it is a transport that is armed with the Suzang Po launcher, carries 8 missiles. Range is pretty terrible, especially considering that as the missile's in the air, the tank that you're going to be firing at it is usually going to be closing onto your vehicle, and that means that you don't have as much time as you would like to get 1 or 2 missiles on target. And you would actually find that the Type 85 is going to get destroyed before your missile even hits. So that's why I won't be using these things. He has also brought the ATS-103. These are tank destroyers, or at least that's what they're classified as. They are not great, but not terrible either. For a gun this long, or a barrel this long, I would expect more accuracy, because the shell is stabilized for longer. But they only have a 45% accuracy. If this thing would have 60%, I would give it pretty much a no-brainer tag, because with 10 rounds a minute and 13 armor penetration, you can quickly decimate tanks. That is not the super heavies, of course, but vehicles and medium tanks will quickly go down to fire from this vehicle. They're also pretty cheap at 30 points. Autonomy is okay, 60 kph off-road, 600 kilometers. A bit of armor, but they're really used for ambushing mostly. And medium optics, which is an interesting feature on this vehicle. Now, I don't think I'll be using any other of the vehicles from this category. I might bring in the ZSU 57-2 later on, but I'm going to see what kind of sections I might be missing. Helicopter-wise, he has brought 16 Mi-2s, or sorry, Mi-25s. These are the gunships for North Korea. As usual, North Korea is lagging behind a little bit with the technology, in the sense that there is only a Yak-B on this thing that does not have any kind of armor penetration. This means that it's not going to be as effective as you would like against other vehicles. It is not armed with an autocannon which has armor penetration. So transports are just going to take HE damage, and that makes this thing mostly geared towards anti-infantry warfare. Rocket pods will take down transports, but they're not that accurate, and the flight time missile that you can see mounted on these mounts here on the side of the helicopter are not that good. I don't think that it warrants to have 16 of these. I'm going to change that up a bit, because another useful rocket ship that I found is the Mi-8 gunship. You could go with the Mi-4 if you want even more rocket pods. Let me show you the difference between these. The gunship has the Suzang Po's and the rocket pods. You don't really have to look at these machine guns because they're both terrible. This rocket pod has an HE value of 1, and this one has an HE value of 2, which makes it slightly more capable of defeating lightly armored vehicles such as infantry transports. The advantage of the gunship, though, is that it's faster, 250 versus 180. And it also carries the Suzang Po, which you can sometimes get a lucky hit with and either heavily damage or destroy an enemy tank. So what I'm going to do is bring a couple of these gunships. I want them at the maximum accuracy that I can get them to boost the accuracy for the Suzang Po. And I'm also going to bring this one, the MD500D AGS-17. This is the North Korean version of the Little Bird. And with these grenade launchers you can very, very quickly chew through enemy infantry, especially if you have a block where you cannot really get to with, for example, a napalm tank. You can have a group of 2 of these helicopters just pound on that sector before you move in with your own infantry. And that's what I'm going to spend those 2 points on that I liberated from the vehicle tab. Finally, in air, yeah, we cannot suffice without any one of these. The B-5 bomber. Very, very heavy bomb. It's called the nuke bomber because it drops this 300 kilogram bomb. 25% accuracy, 30 HE, which is the highest in the game. Maximum amount of suppression value. I'm not going to say anything that you throw this thing on is going to be gone, but at least it's going to be extremely heavily damaged. Infantry in a block of towns or a block of urban cover can usually be destroyed by this bomb right away. If they're out in the open, they're just going to melt. Vehicles can usually be destroyed. Tanks will usually take a ton of damage, go into panicked, but otherwise are usually not quite dead. You're just going to be doing a lot of HE damage to those vehicles. Keep in mind they have a terrible turn radius of 600. There is no turning around with this thing, literally, because they are so bad at turning around. If you missed your target, just evac them, repair them if you need to, and bring them in again. That's the way that's much more effective at using these things. SU-25K as a nice tank sniper. These missiles are unfortunately semi-active. They are not fire and forgets, so you have to keep on target until you get a hit. That means that if you get a hit with 28 armor penetration, you're going to be doing a lot of damage to it. The plane itself, though, is not that survivable with only 10% ECM. It means that you're not going to be that survivable. So if you can, have this thing escorted by a fighter or something that has higher ECM, like for example this MiG-29. This is a decent air superiority fighter. It's not as good as some of the more modern air forces have, but with 30% ECM, medium and longer or long-ish range, fire and forget missiles, because they're not 7,000, they're just 40.2 kilometers. You will be scoring some aerial kills, but I would prefer bringing in these guys in groups of 2 to make sure that they are maximum efficient. Let's see, the next one. Oh, these things are interesting. The Su-7 BMK has rocket pods. They do a rocket pod run on stuff. They are very, very quick to rearm. And with that rearmament, you can be using these things not all the time, but damn near all the time, depending on how many you have available. He has 4 of these available, and that means that if you have 4 of these in your airfield, you're probably going to have 1 that just came out of a battle, 1 that's on rearm, and 1 or 2 that's going to be ready. So with these you can put down a lot of rocket pod fire, but they are not that survivable with 0% ECM. This means that they will get shot down very easily. So again, make sure that there's either no AA, or that you escort them with something like a MiG-29, which can take some of the missile fire and deflect it with its ECM value. And then Democritus went with another fighter, which is the MiG-23 ML. These, surprisingly, for a 95-point plane, have longer range missiles than the MiG-29, in the sense that they have 6.3 kilometer semi-active missiles, which do a decent amount of HE damage. The short-range missiles are nice, though. 50% accuracy, fire and forget, and this means that with their lower speed of 900, or actually their same speed, I use these things mostly as a backup for the MiG-29 if I would be using them, and I'm not that sure yet. Because, let's see, unfortunately we don't get a seed plane. I would like to get another multi-role in here, but the only multi-role that they really have is this cluster bomber, which is not that good. Again, 0% ECM, but it adds a capability to this deck that we don't really have yet, which is taking out vehicles en masse. With that cluster bomb we can do it. With the MiG-23 ML we don't really have the capacity to do that. So that's one more change I'm going to make to this deck. Let's see, he went full navy with this one. He has 1 Sovereign Many, 4 Jangyus, 4 Schmells as backup with pretty much rocket artillery support, and a couple of Munas. I think this is a good setup. Personally, I don't think that you really need to upvet these ships, so I'm gonna delete them and change them to rookie, because these ships will upvet themselves quick enough if you have them near the shore where they can fire at something. If you find that you use these Jangyus all the time, you could consider bringing in another card of Munas at the expense of a Schmel. And the reason I'm saying that is because they only carry 120 rounds of their own. They have a high rate of fire, 24 rounds. That means they're going to be out of ammo pretty quickly, especially if you have a group of ships that you're engaging with a group of your own Jangyus. You're going to see that these guys chew through supplies. So keep in mind that you might want to change that. Otherwise, I think it's a good all-rounder deck. I think it can do pretty much anything. Personally, I won't be using it because I don't really play North Korea, but if you feel like you want to use it, go into the description of this video and that's where you can find the deck code. Now, currently I'm not accepting any more decks for review. I'm just going through the decks that people have sent in over the last couple of weeks or months really, because I haven't really gotten around to those yet. So unfortunately you can't send in your deck at the moment, but if I'm going to accept decks again, I'll let you know in the next video. Anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you liked watching it. I hope you like seeing another Wargame video. I can't promise you I'm going to be doing one of these again every day because I am far too busy with offline stuff to guarantee that I can do a video every day, but I just wanted to put up something for you guys today. So, hope you liked it. If you did, please hit the like button, and if you want to see more, subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching. Good to see you guys again, and I'll see you next time.